we're thrilled to have Bassanti Pathak with us, CEO of NeuroVeda. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us.
Now, you're going to teach us today how to keep calm, aren't you, under pressure?
And I hear that it's very needed at the moment. Yes,
Tell me about
it. Yes, so this is basically what we do in many ways. So we're focusing on increasing company profits by optimizing the workforce, by making the workforce more productive and make them better at performing at their job. And the way we do that is through very much science-led training that is designed for busy teams or busy individuals, and to basically disrupt with a tiny little bit their working day. So not disrupt it too much because nobody has time, everybody is time poor these days. So we really start with everyone who is busy, who is stressed, and who needs help at becoming better at their job.
So you talk about changing the architecture of the brain, which I find in my basic way quite tricky to understand. So if you're able to explain.
Okay, let me start by saying that when we talk about poor performance, there's often a lot of different reasons for it, right? It can be linked to physical stiffness or pain when you're sitting at a desk all day. It can be it can be linked to cognitive overload, mental fatigue, those sorts of things. It can be very much stress related if you've got multiple deadlines. But all of that is not a motivational issue. It's all got to do with the neuroscience of how does our brain work, how does our body work, how does everything link together, essentially. So we are looking at neuroscience-informed programs that we use to ultimately change the architecture of the brain. So we use the brain's neuroplasticity, the ability that the brain has to change, but also the body's bioplasticity in order to change the way that we react in certain situations to stress. For example, if you're defaulting in a particular stressful situation to, I don't know, to shouting at someone, whether that's your team or whether that's the person who cut in front of you at the coffee shop, that is what we are trying to change. And that happens over time because you don't change anything like that, just like you can't immediately get the biggest bicep or tricep in the world by just going to the gym once. That happens over time. But there are certain hacks that we have, and that's why I said this is so meant for busy individuals and busy teams, because there are certain things that we can do within a minute in which we can help them reset their stress levels, get them to focus when they really need that focus, if they're lethargic after their lunch or because they've just worked very, very hard and they need a break and then they need to go again. So there are certain things that we can do in a minimum of time. There are certain things that need longer, and it is that regularity where it comes in that we actually change the way the brain works. So to put it in plain English, the more you think about, the more you do something, no matter what it is, whether you play chess a lot or you play an instrument a lot, a musical instrument, it all has an effect on your neural architecture. So certain pathways in the brain get used more, certain neurons will fire again and again and again, and that is what we're trying to change, and can change very efficiently and effectively through a few minutes every day. So it doesn't need a lot, it just needs that regularity.
Okay, imagine this situation now where two people are screaming and shouting and yelling at each other. How do you stop that?
So number one, and there's a few things that come into it. There's always a lot of things that we can do. Yoga would talk about the different sheaths of the body, but I'll give you an example that has nothing to do with it, that is more scientific. Although I would argue that all these yogic scriptures hold science. They just have a different language to express it. But if two people scream and shout at each other, let's have a look at how close they are standing to, close to each other they are. Go away from each other and their energy is not going to affect you. And that's also proven, you know, a couple of meters between you and that energy of that person will not affect you. The closer you are, the more you feel you can't escape that, right? And so that's number one. That's what I would do. Then I would say to both of them, let's just, if there is a mediator at all, you know, if it's just the two of them, I think that they have a problem because they're both up here, high stress levels, and they're angry. But if I am there, I will say, okay, step away from each other, take a deep breath in with me, and then slowly exhale. And we've all heard, I'm sure, of the vagus nerve, the longest cranial nerve in the body, which essentially is like an information superhighway. It tells the brain what's going on in the body. So if you breathe a certain way, for example, you breathe in for 3, you breathe out for 6. So exhale for longer than you've inhaled, and you're immediately sparking your parasympathetic nervous system. And I think we're all very much aware of how our whole hormonal status, how all of the things that go on in our body, even the things that we eat or the way that we've slept, have an effect on how we react in certain situations. Because at the end of the day, nothing needs to be a stressor. What is a stressor to you might not be a stressor to me, and so on and so forth. And we all have things that trigger us, so we need to learn that. But the first thing is get you from your sympathetic response, your stress response, into your parasympathetic nervous system. And from there, we can then actually decide, well, what is it that actually went on here? And there's certain meditations and concentration exercises that are very good for spotting what it is that actually happened in a certain situation. Because what we often realize, and what we very often don't realize in turn as well, is that all of our reactions depend on our prediction, our body, our brain prediction system. So our brain makes predictions all the time, and that is great, because that way you don't expend as much energy. Because if you're constantly seeing every situation anew, then there's too much going on, far too much electrical activity, far too much energy that the body needs in order to make sense of the world. Whereas if we're really relying on all of our previous experiences, everything that's ever happened in our lives, it's much easier to go on autopilot, find our way to work rather than think about it. And that is the reason why we also have unconscious biases, stereotypes, and why we react to a certain person a certain way. They might be reminding us of someone that we really didn't like at school, and we're in our 50s or 60s or something. It might be that they said something that sparked a certain thing that our partner always says to us, and that drives us up the wall. So it's spotting these different things. And there are meditations such as, for example, mindfulness, where you're only observing whatever happens in the body, all the perceptions that come, without judging them as good or bad, love it or hate it. And that train the brain, again, also over time, to not judge as much, not judge as quickly. And quite technically, and I don't know how interesting that is, but in neuroscience speak, your brainstem will log that information and then send it on to the prefrontal cortex for judgment. The brainstem does not judge. It's non-conceptual. It's basically like a telephonist in a company. The prefrontal cortex will be the CEO who makes the decision. But we can lengthen that period of non-judgment, and that helps us not judge when we maybe shouldn't judge, and take a step back and think, did that person actually mean to harm me? What is actually going on?
With staff optimization, and you talk about the sort of business mindset, athlete mindset, is that right?
Yeah.
Have you had like great feedback, say from businesses that have taken up
Yes.
your services?
Yes, I mean, that's the nice thing, you know, in a job like ours, it's such a wonderful job to have, because you go to these companies, you make their life better. Sometimes they're already happier when they know you're coming on that day. So that is quite helpful as well, because that mindset also changes, right? If you think you're going to be happy and you're going to be relaxed, then you are more likely to be happy and relaxed, because in your mind it's already happened, right? Mm-hmm. If you're thinking of a certain food, you can already feel the saliva in your mouth, if that is a food you like. So yeah, wonderful feedback on how it's changed productivity levels, how it's really helped their mental health and well-being, and helped staff culture. So that is also, you know, staff retention and staff turnover, obviously big things. And it's not just about the company profit. And those leaders that we work with know that if they want to increase their profit, it is all about making sure the staff works properly, that they are healthy, that they are happy. That goes for, you know, musculoskeletal issues, alleviating those. But it's also things like, do they like their team? Do they like coming to work? And then it's about making sure that this becomes a regular thing, rather than we come in once, we tell you about the science, great that you know, but what is it that you actually do? So we give tools all the time. And what we do if we come for say a 30-minute session every week, We always make sure that in the first 5 minutes, we give that number one hack that you can use to de-stress yourself. And you can do that today, you can do it right now when you need it, you can do it tomorrow while you still remember it, and then next week we give you something else, while the rest of that time that we have with you is of course not wasted. It is again about that regularity and getting yourself to change the architecture of the brain and the way that you hold your body as well. So just that whole awareness, it is manifested more because we're staying longer, but there are simple things that you can do. And I think in our world of bite-sized information, TikTok, Instagram, it's all just within a minute, you need to do this. It's very, very good to have that because our attention span is also not what it used to be anymore. So if we give people these tiny little tools, then they feel empowered and they come back because they know that there is more to be had.
There are two stressful periods coming up that I'm aware of. I mean, first of all, how do families cope with Christmas? That's a very stressful period. But probably more importantly, in the corporate world, sales, most companies make 90% of their profit in December.
Yeah.
And so the stress level on sales teams is acute.
It is very much so, yes.
What advice do you give to corporates and to salespeople to actually still be able to cope with that pressure at the same time?
There's a lovely saying, and I'm probably attributing it to the wrong person now. It might have been the Dalai Lama, it might have been many people who were all copied from each other. But it goes, if you should meditate for half an hour every day. Not if you're busy, then you should meditate for an hour every day. And that is the one thing that I remind everyone of. If you are stressed, take those 2 minutes. It is just 2 minutes. And you will realize that you work more productively, you are better at decision making, and there is so many studies, double-blind. I mean, I could cite so many things that show that only 2 minutes, even 1.5 minutes of breathing, make a massive difference to your productivity levels, to your decision-making abilities. And that is the way to get through it, because we all know that stress happens, The main thing is, stress is not our enemy. It can be. It is if it's multiple stressors all at the same time and they never go away. That is not good for anyone, because we have to remember that stress comes, that everything that is in our body is still there to keep us alive. And back in the day when we were hunters and gatherers, we needed that stress. We needed our muscles to tense up, to get ready for that fight or that flight from the animal that was going to kill us. And it is still there. But our stress response, and there are many different ones, it's all a little bit more complex than just this is the one stress response, adrenaline, cortisol, and then you're getting, once the stress is gone. But the main thing is stress, so hormesis is what we're looking for. So controlled stress, giving yourself the time. So not too much stress, because then you're going into this overwhelmed situation and it's all too much and head in the sand. We don't want that. And unfortunately, that sometimes is the case. And then you need the right leader or manager to recognize that as well. So we also work with them because sometimes they are the problem, let's face it. But the other thing is that you need to make stress your friend. Make it your friend, seek it out, be in control of the situation, and then let yourself relax afterwards, even if that is just 5 minutes, and then you go back to the next thing.
If you're going to, let's do it, even if it's a small corporate group, do you evaluate each individual team member? And maybe certain people need certain things that
Something else as well, yes, that is such a good question. It depends on how we work. So we started off 12 years ago with wanting to make employees healthier, employers happier because of it. And we really said, these are our services. Chair yoga, we alleviate musculoskeletal tension, computer ergonomics, adjusting the hardware, etc. And then we, and yoga is not just the physical side of things, it is breathing science, it is meditation science, it's the science of concentration and sound as well. There's so much to talk about when it comes to that. But a couple of years ago, we decided that we don't just want those services, we want to make sure that we are more in control of what we do, that we can really look at this team and say, okay, fine, they hired us for chair yoga, so now we need to do chair yoga with you. So we came up with programs that optimize them based on what it is they need. And in such a case, we speak to the teams, every single individual in the team. We listen to them, what they think the problem is and where they lack, but we also then read between the lines what is actually going on. We speak to the leaders, we look at the company culture, how things are supposed to be, how they actually are. So that is very different. And then we have much more freedom as to what we can do. And then no session is ever the same. It isn't anyway. But we have that freedom to say, today I can assess that you need this rather than that. So yeah, it really depends. But sometimes it's just a box standard visualization. And they are really wonderful as well, because what happens in a visualization, so Ian, if you're currently very stressed, think of your favorite holiday that you've ever been on. You don't have to share with me what it is.
You see?
Or actually, please
do you want to see me cry? is this your intention?
Crying is actually very good, so why not? Releases wonderful happy hormones. No, but what happens if you're thinking of something like that? So we want to engage your sensory perception. We want to get you from your left hemisphere of the brain into the right hemisphere of the brain to make you calmer. And that happens through, say, it's your skiing holiday, I don't know, the snow underneath your feet, or it's a holiday on the beach. The way that you can taste the salt of the sea on your lips, those sorts of things, or your favorite fruit, all of that immediately de-stresses you. So all of what we teach has a lot of science behind it, but we don't often hit people with the science because most people don't have time. So not too theoretical, not performative at any point either, because no one has time for that. We give people what they need, and of course people are interested in the science, but that can be once they're actually relaxed enough and they have the time, not in December. So.
Unfortunately, time has caught up with us again today. Please come back on again, because there are so many questions.
Because we were talking, but you know, to say, from an individual point of view, because obviously you are top of your game, and it's great to go into corporates stuff. But there's lots of people like me who thinks, oh gosh, I really would like to try this. I want to get strong and be able to be more flexible and all the things that I'm not. So do you work with individuals as well?
I do as well. So because I've got the company, and because I always say yoga was meant for everyone. It is not a practice for skinny young white girls that want to be sexy and flexible. It is for everyone, because it really has the ability to change your whole life, your brain, your body, and that is for everyone at any stage of their life. And that is why, even though my main concern is of course my company, I also have an on-demand subscription platform where you can do classes with me whenever you want. There's a lot of physical yoga on there, slow, gentle, sometimes fast, so whatever it is that you want and whatever level you're at as well. And I talk a lot about the science in that as well. I do a Zoom class live online on Saturday mornings, and I can be found around the corner from where I live, actually at Brockwell Lido, where I love teaching because it's people from all walks of life, and no one asks you to do a certain style, because it's not about the styles, it's about who's in front of you and what they need at any given day.
Gosh.
How can people get in contact with you now?
So my website would be the first port of call, I would say. That's pathak-yoga.com. I'm also on Instagram, at Pathak Yoga, on TikTok. For my sins, I'm everywhere. Bassanti Pathak, so you can find me everywhere on socials. I'm on LinkedIn, Bassanti Pathak. And I'm always very happy to hear from people and just have an exploration call to find out what it is that people need.
Just if there was one thing that you could leave with, you know, everybody, what would you suggest? I mean, obviously there's lots of things with yoga, but
that you are absolutely in control of your body and your brain. And sometimes that is hard to remember when it all comes over us and we feel like we're completely out of control. But you are in control of your body and your brain, so never forget that. And wear life like a loose garment, because we're all human beings. No one is better than someone else. Yes, there are hierarchies at work and everywhere in life, right? But at the end of the day, we connect on a human level, and we're all the same, aren't we?
Absolutely.
Bless you.
I love this.
Well, thank you for coming on the show today.
I'd like you to join us another